feet high, as clear as day. And all of a sudden, this friend of mine, Steve, he goes, Dwayne, they're shooting off rocket flares. We're busted. And I said, no, Steve, look, that's not a flare. Look at it. And that's when he first saw the light, and it got bigger and bigger. That same night, in Colorado Springs, there were thousands of people saw another ship. That same night that we experienced that, because I was talking to someone years ago. Years ago I was talking to you about that one particular incident, and they said, hey, Colorado Springs had a encounter of the same kind.
Uh-huh. So. Okay. Fascinating. And you say this thing was like gigantic?
Gigantic. It looked like it was 3 miles across. It was huge.
Wow.
Lake George is a really neat little town west of Colorado Springs. It's a prospecting area. It's surrounded by national forest, and I dug crystals up there, smoky quartz and amazonite crystals. I'm a prospector, and so I dug thousands and thousands of crystals, and that was one thing that I loved doing. I'm an artist, I'm a sculptor, but I supplemented my income by digging crystals, and I was very good at it. I had a psychic ability to find these pockets of crystals, and I feel like they give off an inner energy, and that's what I told everyone for years. That's how I found these crystals, and I was probably one of the best crystal diggers in the Lake George area because of the massive crystals that I found, the massive pockets. And so one evening, I'd gone up on the ridge above Lake George. I drove up, got out of my truck, and walked over the edge, and it was, an hour and a half before sundown, and I just had this feeling that there was something below this rock shelf, and I started digging, and broken crystals started coming out of the ground. I dug down 3 feet and started pulling out these beautiful, round, they wasn't real long, but they were the most perfect smoky quartz crystals I'd ever seen. And the pocket was probably 4 feet wide and maybe 2.5 feet deep. I was down 3 feet into this pocket, but it was 2.5 feet across, 4 feet wide. And I just dug out a massive amount of clay, and this clay was full of broken pieces of quartz and smoky quartz crystals. And I got down, I had dug up a bunch of beautiful, perfect crystals that were free, had broken off of the pegmatite dike. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there sweeping with a whisk broom, these beautiful crystals, and they were all stuck to a plate, and I didn't want to break them off because I would destroy a beautiful specimen. It was kind of like the inside of a geode, and I thought, well, I don't have a flashlight, the sun's going down, I'll take my flannel shirt off, I'll cover it with pine needles, flannel shirt, pine needles, and then I'll just cover the pocket back because I don't want no one to find it. And I often did that when I was digging crystals. And so I knew I was going to go back and dig the crystals up. And so that night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, the lady I was living with wakes me up. She'd got up to go to the bathroom. She says, Dwayne, come here and tell me. There's something here I want you to look at. So I get up and go into the living room in the trailer house we were living in, and I look across the Platte River, and she said, what's that? And once again, I had a kind of a funny reply, like, hey, it's not the running lights of a 4-wheel drive truck. That's a flying saucer. And it was a saucer, maybe I'd say 75 to 100 feet, perfect saucer, little dome on top. And what was so magnificent about this particular saucer was it gave off a soft glow below it. And right through the center was a ribbon of lights. It looked like Christmas lights. Red, green, yellow. Red, green, yellow. They were really close together. And then there was a ribbon of light going around this saucer. A bright, intense ribbon. And it was just going, you could tell because it came across in front of the middle of the saucer and completely did away with those colored lights. And Sherry says, call Cecil Butler, the deputy sheriff of Park County. And I said, no, I'm going to watch this thing. I want to see what it's going to do. And all of a sudden, a pencil of light comes out of this saucer and goes up to the mountain top where that afternoon I dug and exposed this pocket of crystals. And the reason why I say it was a pencil of light, it wasn't like a normal light. It didn't spread out. It was like a laser beam. I saw the beginning and the end. It went into the side of the mountain. Sherry says, call Cecil Butler right now. I had the phone in my lap, picked up the phone. The next thing I remember was this bright light, so intense. I'll never forget how bright it was because it burned in my brain. The most intense light I've ever seen. And outside the living room window was a clothesline pole with clothesline wires, clothespins, a pair of shorts, and some buffalo grass growing up beside the clothesline pole. And then the saucer, and then the ridge beyond the Platte River. And the light was so bright. The pins, the line, the shorts, the pole, the buffalo grass was jet black. The light burned in my brain, and it was so intense. Then it was instantly a reverse. Surrounding the line, the pin, the shorts, the pole, and the grass, everything was jet black. And it was complete reverse. The line, the pins, the shorts were white, and it burned in my brain. And all of a sudden, in a mechanical voice, the light disappeared. It was only for like a couple of seconds. Sherry says, don't call Cecil Butler. He will think we're doing drugs. I am going to sleep. And I said, I'm not going to call Cecil Butler. He will think we were doing drugs. And I went to sleep. And for 5 days, I tried to remember that encounter. And I kept trying to remember it. And I went to the Thunderbird Inn in Florissant, Colorado. And I was partying with a buddy of mine named Chabonneau. And I said, man, you can't believe, Chabonneau, what I saw this week. He goes, what'd you see? And I was drinking Wild Turkey and Budweiser. And I said, I can't remember. And that was like on a Friday night. It was Saturday night. I was drinking everything in the bar. And I remembered, I had this just like a flash of seeing the saucer and getting zapped with a bright light. And so I told Chabonneau what I just told you. And he said, well, let's go there tomorrow. And I said, okay. So we get up. He comes to my trailer house on Sunday morning. We get up and drive across the Platte River, and we go right to the place where the saucer was hovering. And the wildflowers and the grass were wilted. It was a big circle. Everything was wilted. And then we drove on to the north and then up this canyon and then back around and came up on top of this ridge. Walked over the edge of the ridge where you could see my trailer house on the other side of the Platte River. And walked over to the edge where I'd covered this pocket of crystals. And I got my shovel out of the truck and started digging. And David and I, or Chabonneau and I, both pulled the decomposed granite out of this pocket and got down about 3 feet. Pine needles, my beautiful flannel shirt that was like brand new that I'd buried so I would protect the crystals. Then I reached down very carefully and I pulled the flannel shirt back, and there was no crystals left. They were completely gone. And then when I saw the crystals gone, that is when I remembered that night I had been abducted and taken on board a flying saucer and shown the law of levitation and how they use crystals and how they use that the aura created from crystals and electricity to perform levitation. So, but you know, it's like when I remembered that after seeing under my flannel shirt nothing, I remember 2 aliens standing next to me and showing me the core of the flying saucer and the exact same size crystals that I had exposed in that pocket were in the core of the ship. And I have drawn a diagram of the law of levitation and how they use crystals.
I see, and that is somehow a propulsion type source for the.
It's not propulsion. It's called aura.
Aura. Oh, okay.
It's the law of aura. It's nothing to do with anything that science is doing right now.
Okay.
It's a greater energy than what we even know. And how they use the crystals, it creates an aura around their saucer. And they feed a certain amount of energy to one side and it pushes the saucer in the opposite direction. Inside the aura there is no gravitational pull. Inside the aura they can choose where they can actually make like a wormhole and bend time or bend space. And they open up a door and it's like a portal. They make their own portals, and they can go into the future and into the past.
And this is probably why they're so ephemeral and quick moving that nobody can really get a fix on them.
That's exactly it, and that's why people that have been abducted and been on board and watched the erratic motions of a flying saucer, if you've ever seen one or anybody has ever seen a UFO, it's like the way they move sometimes. They can be going in a direction like 1,000 miles an hour and then change course. And people have actually been on board these UFOs, and there's no detrimental effect on their well-being,
like
because
inertia causing them to crash
right,
into the side wall or something like that.
And so that through like a false ceiling that dropped down to the big machines like strip-its, punch press,